Now, in the last session, we actually saw on how to set the global configuration, and in that we just saw how do we do a environment variable setting. Okay, and some basic changes in the settings is what we saw. Now we also saw that how do we install a plugin and where do we have the plugin management details in the Jenkins. The next thing what we will do is we will try to configure different kind of nodes, and then with using all those things we will try to configure a job, and then we will try to run different kinds of job. Okay, so that way, how do I go to the Jenkins running on my machine? Go to localhost 8080 and you will be connected to the Jenkins. Okay, so in this now I'm trying to add a node. What do you mean by a node? So node is nothing but a machine on which you want to run some task, right? So that way, whatever machines that we have onto which we want to run some task, we need to add it. So if you go to that, there is that. Yep. So here, if you want to perform a task and you want to run it, you have to basically connect to a machine on which you want to run, right? So that way, we will try to configure all the details about each and every machine on which we are interested to run a job through connecting by Jenkins. Okay, so that way, to do that, we'll go to the Jenkins, manage Jenkins, and in that, if you scroll down, you can see an option called as manage nodes. So this is the place where you will be trying to add a new node or delete an existing one or try to modify the values based on that. Okay. So in this, now if you look, there is already a machine which is available and it says master. So what is this? We never added a machine, right? Then how come it is showing that there is already a node attached to the Jenkins? But it says it is master. So what exactly is this? Do you recall in the last class I said, if you do not give a machine name to a job, then by default, the job will run on the same machine as where the Jenkins is installed, right? So that is why by default, the master machine itself will be added as one of the node. Okay, exactly. So that is what you are seeing here. Because of this, if you see, even though you have not added any machine, by default, the machine on which you have installed, that is the master machine, will be acting as the default node. So now, along with it, if you want to add a new machine, then you will be trying to click on this new node, and then you give the name of the node. Now let's say you want to use a Linux machine, or you want to use a server. Okay, so you'll give the name of the server to which you want to connect. Basically, it is just a name for identification, not the exact name of the machine. So that way, give a name which we will be using it to identify, and choose the option called permanent agent and click OK. Then you will be getting certain options here. Okay, so what are the options that we have here? Now in this, first thing is the name of the machine which we are trying to configure, and then you have the description which will tell what is the purpose of this. So simply I can say this is our test server. Then once again you have something called as executors, that is number of executors. So what do you mean by this? It means now at any given point of time for a particular node. Now let's assume this is the server 1 that we are trying to add. Now for this server or the node, at any point of time, how many separate jobs can we connect from the Jenkins and run on it? Getting it? Now on this machine or node, how many separate jobs can we connect and run on it? So that is what we call it as number of executors. So if I say the number of executor is 2, at any point of time, the maximum of 2 jobs from Jenkins can connect on it. If I say 3, then maximum of 3 separate jobs from this machine or from this Jenkins can connect to this particular machine and run. Okay, that is what we call it as number of executors. So the number of executors again depends on what kind of task you want to do and how much of resource that is available in this machine. Based on that, you should be choosing it. So always keep the number of executors very minimum, like 2 or 3, depending on how good your server is. Getting it? Now, once you have given the number of executors, then the next thing is remote root directory. What do you mean by remote root directory? Now, ideally, if you are going to perform a task, let's say I want to run some command, and if I tell it here and I choose this as my machine, what Jenkins will do is Jenkins will connect to this particular machine, and on that machine, it will be trying to run this task. Okay, but where exactly you are going to run this task on this machine? That is important, isn't it? Now, let's say on my Windows machine, I'll open a command prompt and I just want to type some command, something. Now, where exactly I am running this? If you look, there is a default directory in which I am pointing, and that is where I am running this command. So the same way, when you actually connect to the node from Jenkins, it will also go to some directory in this machine, and from there it will be trying to run all your command. So that way, the remote root directory is nothing but a directory that we have to create in this machine, and that is the directory in which every time when Jenkins connects to this machine, it will go inside and run the task. Suppose if you create something like C folder test, and if you give it here, then whenever you run Jenkins, Jenkins will go to that machine, and in that machine, whatever the remote root directory you have given, it will be running only in that. Okay, so remember, remote root directory means the directory in which when we say Jenkins to run, it will connect to the machine, and after connecting to the machine, it will go to a particular directory that what you have given as the remote root directory, and only there it will be running the task. So such a kind of directory is what we call it as remote root directory. So remember, if you say remote root directory and for a machine, it should be available. Then when Jenkins connects to that node, it will go to the remote root directory of that node that you have given, and inside that directory only, it will be running whatever task we have to run. Okay, so that way, for every node that is going to be connected to Jenkins, you will be giving the remote root directory, and make sure that this remote root directory is available on that machine, so that when Jenkins connects, it will be going to that directory, and only from that it will be running all the tasks. Okay, so that is what we call it as remote root directory. The next thing is labels. Now, what is label? Now, if you understand, label is nothing but to identify something. So what is that we have to identify? So basically, when we are trying to run something, what we can do is either you can give one name directly, or if you remember, Jenkins acts as a cron server replacement, which means now if one machine is going down, or if one machine is not working properly, then Jenkins can automatically pick up another machine. So in order for that, what we need to do is we have to group some machines, and that group we have to assign a label or a name. So basically, a label is nothing but a group of machines that you will be creating, and when you want to run a job, you will give the name of that label or the group, so that when Jenkins is trying to run, it will check out of that label what and all are the machines there, and in that which machine is available, and it will directly use it. So we don't have to tie up one job to one particular machine, because if this is not working, then this job will not work. So that is how we will be creating a group of machines and we will be giving a name called as label, so that when you are actually writing a job and in that you specify what it has to do and when it has to do and where it has to do. And while it is saying where, you will specify what the just group name, so that any one of the machine which is available in that group, Jenkins will automatically take it up. So suppose if this machine is not available, whatever the other machine that is available in the group, it will automatically pick up and it will use that for executing whatever tasks it is. Okay, so that way label is nothing but group of nodes using which you can run a particular task. If one node goes down, automatically the other one will be picked up by Jenkins. So such a kind of group is what we call it as label. And in fact, when you're defining a job, you will not be just directly saying a machine name, but you will be saying a group name. So that is how we will have the advantage where if one machine goes down on the same group, if you have any other machine, that will be picked up by the job and it will automatically run. Okay. So that is what we call it as a label. And then the next one is usage. So usage here, if you see, do you want the node should be always connected to the Jenkins master, or only if you have a particular label defined in a job and that label is what you have attached to this machine, then this machine will get connected. Which means now, let's say you have created one label for this, and if I give that label to this job, then only this job which has the label name associated to the machines, it will come and use it. Okay, so like that you can tell whether you want to use a node as much as possible. If not, attach a particular label, and only if a job uses a label which is associated to this machine, only then this machines will be called. If not, it will not be called directly. So such a kind of usage is what we will give. So by default, if you want, you can always keep it as much as possible, or only whenever you need, Jenkins will connect to that particular machine and then do the task. Okay, so that's what we call it as usage. So the default thing that we will always have is use as much as possible, which means if Jenkins wants to run a job and you have given a label name as part of that, you have this machine also, then automatically it will pick up and run it. Okay, now all these things that you have told so far is to tell to Jenkins on how to run this job, or on a particular job, if you are using this machine, how is that it should run. So that is what the details we have given. But if you look, we also should be telling how Jenkins should be connecting, right? What we are told so far is after connecting, how it has to run is what we said. But in order to connect, how is that the master should be connecting to the Jenkins? That is the node. So for that, you will be using different method. And one of the popular method that you will use is either use the SSH, where in this you will give the name of the machine, what password that you have to use, all those things, so that whenever you want to do a task, Jenkins will be connecting to this machine using these details. Okay, suppose if you don't want, then you can use another standard type that is called as Java Web Start method. So this is another popular method using which we will be trying to connect to a machine from the Jenkins, that is connect to this particular machines from Jenkins. Okay, and then finally availability. Availability means, do you want the Jenkins to be always connected to this machine, or do you want Jenkins to connect to the machine only when there is a need? That is, if someone says do a job, and for that job you have attached this particular node, then whenever you want, you can go ahead and connect. If not, keep it always running. So that is what this option says, that availability. If not, by default, you can keep this agent online as much as possible. Okay. Before we get into working on it, did you understand on what is the executor and what is a remote root directory, and what is a label, and specifically what is the launch method that we will be using. Others? Nagesh, Kavya, Karunakar. Okay, so you will be giving these details. Now, this is for the production that you will be doing. But let's take our scenario now. In our case or in your laptop, basically, you will not be having another machine, because even if you create a VM or a virtual machine, you need to do certain network configuration. So that is why just for our class, we can do a workaround. So what you can do is now you can give the details of your machine itself to this Jenkins, so that when Jenkins runs, it will think that it is connecting to this machine, but internally Jenkins is going to connect to your same laptop. That is how Jenkins will not know to which machine it is connecting, but logic wise, we can run whatever task that we want on this machine, where this machine is nothing but our laptop. Okay, so that's why I'm just trying to do a tweak. If not, in the production, the only difference is instead of having our own machine, you will be having a different machine on which you will be connecting through the Java Web Start method. But for our practice, let us make use of our own machine, which will be acting as a server 01. Okay, so now let the number of executors be 1. I have to create a directory called as remote root directory on my laptop. Okay, now before that, you're getting it what I'm trying to do. Now, since for us, we will not be having a machine, let us use our own machine to act as a different name. So when you connect to our machine through Jenkins, it will not know that it is connected to its own master. It will think that it is connected to server 01, but internally, we will only be knowing that this is our own machine. So for you to practice, you can do that way. Getting it? Did you guys get that? So if you have other machine, you can use, but if not, it is just a practice where you can make use of your own machine. So now internally, the server 01 is nothing but our own machine. So I will create a directory in my machine and I'll give that as the remote root directory. So I will use this as the remote root directory. Okay. So now what will happen is whenever Jenkins is trying to connect this machine, internally it will be connected to our own machine, and in that it will go to this folder called remote root directory, and only from that it will be trying to run. Okay, getting it? So if you ask anything to run to Jenkins using this server, it will always go to this directory, and from here it will be running whatever tasks you have specified. Okay, now we'll have to give a label, right? Label is nothing but a name for a group to which this server is associated. Now, if you just create a name here, automatically this machine will be added to this group. Suppose if you are creating one more machine, for that machine also if you give the same label, then this machine and the other machine both together will be part of one group. So that way you will create a name for your group of machines. So let's say I call it as test group. Then, as we know, we will be using the usage as much as possible, and then we will try to use the Java Web Start method to connect to this. Okay, so once you have written everything, you will go ahead and save. Now you can see you have created one more machine called server 01, but that is not yet connected because you have just given only the details on how to connect using Java Web Start method. So if you go inside, after you go inside, you can see it is going to give you an option where you can run. Now, whatever the machine that you have, that is server 01, it could be any other machine. In my case, it is my own laptop. So what I have to do is, first, I have to download this file called slave.jar. Okay. And after downloading it, on that machine which want connected as server 01, you take this command line and run, so that from that machine you will be connected to the Jenkins, and Jenkins will know that this is a particular node. So like this, on whatever machines that you want Jenkins to be connected, then on all that we will try to download this file and run this command, so that that particular machine will be connected to Jenkins. Okay, so that way now I have already downloaded to my machine. So let me just run this quickly. So to run, let me open a command prompt and I'll go to downloads folder. Okay, and here if you type slave.jar, you can see that there is a file available. Okay, now from this machine itself, if I run this, so it is going to basically say that it is connected to this, because this is the path of your what? This is the path of your actual Jenkins. So now it is saying that it is trying to connect to the Jenkins as this machine. Okay, now if you come and refresh this, you can see that the machine is connected to Jenkins and it is ready for doing some task. Okay, you can see the same thing here. So like this, for practicing, you will be just using your own machine. But if you go to production, the only difference is, rather than going inside a particular machine and running, what we are trying to do. So from Jenkins, we are trying to connect to a node. So that way, whatever the node that you have configured, go to that particular node, and in that node, try to download the slave.jar, and from that node, just try to run this command. Whatever that we have got, if you run, what Jenkins will be doing is, from that machine where you are running the slave.jar, it will be connected to the master Jenkins. Getting it? Hello? Kavya, Karnakar, Nagesh, Hari. Did you get that, what I'm saying? Okay, so now what we have done is, we have created one node and we have connected, and that node is part of a group called test group. So if you click this, it will say there is only one machine as part of this test group. Now quickly, let's create one more machine. Okay, now in this, if I go to new node, you can see that earlier that was showing only one option. Now you have another option. So in Jenkins, you can always replicate a configuration when you have something similar, so that we don't have to spend much time on it. So that way, now I will give a new name and I will say copy from an existing node. So this I can say server 01. So now what it is going to do is, it is going to create a new machine called as server 02. For that, whatever the configuration that you have applied for this particular machine or node, it is going to take and apply on this, and it will create a new machine. Okay, so if you click this, you can see it is going to give an exact set of values, in which it is also going to be part of the test group. Okay, now I don't want it to run. Suppose if I wanted to run, what does that have to do? I have to go to that machine from which I am trying to set it up. In that machine, download the slave.jar and then try to execute it, so that that particular machine will be connected to the Jenkins. So as of now, you can see the same value has been populated to this because we have copied a existing node. And now let me save it. And since we have used the Java Web Start method, you can choose any one of them to run, where preferably you will use a slave.jar which you will download, and then you will try to run so that Jenkins will be connected to this particular machine. And now what I'll do is I will not add this. Okay, what? I will not run this command because in our group called test group, how many machines we have? Now we have 2 machines, and out of that, 1 machine is connected and 1 machine is down. So now if you try to run some command, or if you want to run some job and you give the label of that job as test group, then whatever machine that is available, that is whatever node which is connectable to the Jenkins master, it will try to use that particular server and then run the task. So that is how, even if one machine is down, Jenkins will automatically pick up the other one. So that is why, to see that, I have not added what? The other machine where I have not ran this slave.jar. So now there is one group called test group in which we have one machine to which we have connected, and we have other machine to which we have not connected. So basically, when you run some job, by default it will come to the machine on which it is running and it can reach. So in that, it will be running whatever the task you have given in the job. Okay, getting it? Getting it? Hello? Okay, so now what we have done, we have created a group called test group. In that, we have added 2 machines where practically this is our own laptop. So just for easier way of working, I have used that. Now, once you have done with the node configuration, where like this, any new machine that you want to add to the Jenkins and run some task, then you will try to say the node configuration, on which you will try to configure the detail about that machine, and then copy the slave.jar, go to that particular machine, and from there you run that command where Jenkins will be automatically connected to that master, or Jenkins will be basically connected from your master to whatever the other node is available. Okay, so once this is done, the last kind of configuration that we have is job configuration. So that is where now we have to tell to the Jenkins what are the different kinds of job it has to do, and in that what task it has to do, and after that to run that, where is that exactly it has to run. All those details has to be given only through job configuration. Pretty much going forward from now onwards, whatever that we are going to do is basically a different kind of job in which we will specify which machine to use and when to run and what to do. Okay, so that way, if you are configuring a job, it basically needs 3 kind of value. The first thing that you will tell is where to run the job. Okay, so this is where, to tell where to run, you will give the label name, and whatever machine which is available on that label will be picked up by Jenkins automatically to run. Second thing, you need to tell us when to run the task. So whatever that you want to run, you should tell to the Jenkins job on when to run it. So do you have any specific date and time on which you want to run, or do you have any scenario where if one job is executed, after that you want to call that job? So like that, what is your scenario on when to run this job, that you will give it. And finally, you will give the details on what it has to do. Okay, So these are the three major details that we will give. So let's try to see how we can create different kind of jobs and how we can make use of these values as well as the plugins based on which we will be trying to run a job. Okay. So to create a job, go back to Jenkins homepage, and in this now you can see a new item. Whereas since we do not have any job in the Jenkins, you can see that it is showing this. But as you start having many jobs, you have to use only this option called new item. Okay, so if you click on that, it will try to open different kind of templates that is available, based on which there will be some pre-populated plugin or a value which we can use to run a particular task. Okay, and one of the default and the most common type of the job that you're going to use is a freestyle project. So a freestyle means you will not be having any kind of configuration. Everything will be available as a template. So you can choose what and all you want, and based on that, Jenkins will be running it. Okay, so let's use the freestyle type of the project which you are working, and I'll call this as first job. Okay, I'm just giving a name where this job what I'm going to create is called as first job. So in that, if you click OK, you will be getting some options. Okay, now let us try to understand what these tab. So basically this is a one single page which is divided into tab. So you can see it is coming down. Okay, doesn't mean that all these things are separate values for a job, but it is one job. For that, it is splitting these values and showing. Okay, so the first section or the first tab that you see, general, will basically give the details about the machine, that is where this job has to be run and how it has to be run. All those details you will be giving. That is the general details about the job, you will be giving it here. The next thing what you see is source code management. Suppose from this job, that is through Jenkins, you want to connect to any SEM repositories or a SEM tool like Git or Subversion, then you will use the second tab or the option called source code management. Okay, then build triggers is nothing but the specific section where you can specify when you want to run the job. That is, at what date and what time and what is the scenario on which it has to be triggered will be specified using build triggers. So based on that, Jenkins will automatically call the job. Okay, and then build environment. Suppose if you are running a job and you want to do something additionally along with the job, so those kind of special features that will be applied to your environment which you are using to do the job is what we call it as build environment. So supporting actions. And then build is the actual section where you will tell what exactly the job should be doing. Okay, build means what exactly it has to do. And then the post build action will tell what you want to do after you have completed the job. That is post build action. So if your interest is to connect to a machine and run a script, after connecting to the machine and running a script, is there something that you want to run? And then those kind of things you will give it as a post build action. Okay, so these are the default options that is available on a generic type. Whereas if you choose another type, based on the type, you might get some option and you might not get some option. So that is when, if you choose a freestyle option, you will be getting all the things, but based on what kind of values that you're going to use or based on what option you are going to use, Jenkins is going to run accordingly. Okay, so now let's try to create different kind of jobs and understand all of them, whatever that we have in this. Okay, so now if you recall, Jenkins simply what it is going to do, if you tell to a machine, and this is what you have to do, Jenkins will automatically do that step on a particular machine. Okay, so the first thing now, let's come to this step called build. So I am interested to just simply run a simple echo command. So in case if you want to type some command like this, this is what I want to do. Okay. So if you want to run some command wherein these are operating system commands, then on your build step, if you say add build step, it will give you different kind of options based on which you can choose what you are trying to do. So if you are trying to run a tool, based on that, you can choose the option. But if not, what I am interested to do is I want Jenkins to just connect to a machine and run some task or a command. So that way, I want an environment similar to this, correct? So in this way, what is this command prompt? It is a Windows command prompt on which I am running. So if you want to run something similar to a Windows command, then you will say execute Windows batch command. Or suppose if you want to connect to a Linux machine and then run a command that is an operating system command, then you will say execute shell. So now in our case, we are going to use our own machine. So that is why we will be saying execute Windows batch command. But in production, you will say execute shell because you will be connecting to a Linux machine. So if you click this, you are going to get a box which is exactly similar like what you have the command prompt here. So anything that you can type and run here, you can specify the same thing over here where Jenkins will run that automatically for us. Okay. So now here I will simply give these lines. So if you have multiple lines that you want to execute, then you will just give one after the other this way, where what Jenkins will do is when it is connecting to a machine, in that machine, it will run all those things one by one. And it is exactly similar to how you are going to do manually. See, when you run manually, it is going to run one by one. Same way, now, if you are going to use the same in the Jenkins job, it is going to run all of them one by one. Okay. Now, if you have done any changes and quickly save by applying it. Okay. Now, if I want to run this job, what is that I have to do? So at any point of time, if you want to run a job, go back to a job. And in this, you will be getting an option called build now. That is because what is that I have done in the job now? In my job, I have told only one thing, that is run this. So if you come back here in this particular task, now for if I create a job, I have to give the details on where to run, when to run, and what it has to do. But now I have given only one thing, what it has to do. What it has to do? It has to basically run these three commands. Okay. Then I have to tell when to run, correct? So when you say when to run, there are two options that you can say. So first thing is either you can schedule a time based on which Jenkins will be automatically running the job. So if I say I want to run this task at 8:20, then exactly at 8:20 Jenkins will automatically run this. Okay. Now this is one way where for any job you can specify what is the time on which you want to run, that is the schedule. But if not, the other way that you can do is you can trigger or run a job on demand basis. What do you mean by on demand? Now, instead of waiting until the time when you have scheduled, if you want to immediately run a job whenever you have a necessity, then you can simply go ahead and run this job on demand basis. Okay, so remember, A job can be triggered in two ways. One is you can schedule, and based on that, automatically Jenkins can run, or you can specify when you want to run. So based on that, Jenkins will run at that point of time. So first, since in my case now, the only thing I have done is I have just given a task on what it has to do, and I have not set anything. So that way, the option that we will use is on demand basis, that is build now. So if you come to the job, and in this job, if you click this, it will immediately build based on our demand at that time. So like this, whenever you want to run the job on your demand basis, you can come and click on build now. Okay, so see what happens when I click build now. So every time when I click, if you have noted, it was taking around 5 seconds of delay. That is because in the global configuration, last class, we had set the quiet period as 5 seconds. So before doing anything, Jenkins is going to basically wait for 5 seconds and run. And now, every time when you run the job, it is going to practically create a number and it will increment. And based on that, we will be able to track this. Okay. So to see the output, what it has given, if you click on this blue ball, it will take you to the console output on what exactly it has done. So here you can see that it is exactly similar to how we have run manually, right? The same thing, it has run it one by one. Getting it? Now, what is that we did just now? I have created a job in which I have just told run this command, and I told when to run by clicking this build now. So immediately it ran. That is what we did. And because of that, you can see that it is getting a output. Okay. Now, if you look at this, for running a job or for doing a job configuration, I said you need to give all the three values, correct? But in our case, what is that we have done? We have just told what to do, and then we told on demand basis when to run. But we didn't tell where it has to run, isn't it? But where did the Jenkins run? Basically, if you look, it has taken the same machine because you have specified to use it as much as possible. That is the reason it has taken. So if you want to change it, go to this machine, and now if you want to reconfigure the machine under the node, if you go to a particular machine, if you click on the configure, here you will say build only the job when a label is attached to it. If not, don't pick this. So now if you do not give a job a particular node, then what is that it is going to pick? Now let us run this build. So there is a 5-second delay. And now if you try to look at this output, it has once again run the same job, but where has it run? So if you look, it is running on the master itself. It was the behavior that I said, right? If you do not give a node for a job, then by default, it will run on the master machine itself. Getting it now? Because now for this job, I have not told on which node it has to run, because of which it is choosing the master as the default one and it is running. So that is how, if you do not give any machine name to a job, then it will be running by default on the master itself. Getting it? Nagesh, Hari, Karnakar. So the first thing that we now understood is how to tell what is it has to do and when it has to run. Now, let us try to say on which machine that it is trying to run. Okay. Okay. Now, saving. So if you recall in the last session, I just showed you if you want, if you click save, what will happen? It will save and come out. Okay, so that is the difference. But if you want to still keep it on the same place, then you will say apply so that you can continue editing. That is the difference. Yes, we can edit. Now, this is the job that we have created, right? If I want to once again edit the same job, you can go and click on this configure button. So configure means you are once again going to edit the same page which you have created. So now if you click configure, you will get back this page. Okay, so that is why I was just clicking on apply to make sure that it is visible in one screen, and on the other page I can show you how to run that. Okay, that is the reason I was keeping it open. Now, how do we specify on which machine you want to run? So that if you come to the general section, and in that you can see an option called restrict where this project should be running. So if you give a detail of a machine here, this job will only run on this and not on any other place. So that way, if you click, you will not give the machine name, but you will give the name of the group, based on which whatever the group that you have and the machines associated to it, if any one of the machine is available, it will use that. So in my case, we created a group called test group. Remember, if you go back to this machine and click on configure, you had given a group called test group, right? So I am giving this. So test group means it has two machines. Okay. So as soon as you give, you can see that it clearly says for this test group, there are two machines as part of it. And what are those two machines? Server 1 and server 2. And in that, it is saying that server 1 is connected and there is a red mark which indicates that server 2 is not connected. Here, this is the server 1 where we have connected. And we know that internally server 1 means it is our own machine. But just for practice, we are telling to Jenkins as if it is a separate machine. Okay. So now we have specified where to run. So let me apply, or that is save, and then let us run this job once again. Okay. And now if you want to see the output of it, if you click this, you can see now it is not picking up your master, but it is trying to pick up a particular machine which is available in the test group. So in this test group, as of now, only one machine is reachable. So it is automatically going to take that machine itself. Okay. And it is then trying to run all of them. Getting it? On how we will be specifying a machine and where Jenkins will be running it. Okay. Now we saw that how do we give a specification on when to run, wherein we saw demand basis itself, right? And after that, we saw where specifically I want to run this job. So based on a machine that is available on a group, any machine which is available at that point of time, it will be taking it. Now, here, if you look everywhere, no, you cannot run both the machine at a given point of time, because if you say you have to run something, it has to run on any one of the machine. So what Jenkins will do is at that point of time, whatever the machine is reachable, it will take any one of them itself. So ideally, Now each job will be running on only one machine. You cannot connect to 2 to 3 machines and run the same command. So for instance, sometime back I ran one command. If I want to run, I have to be connected to one machine and run everything, right? So I cannot connect at the same time to 2 to 3 machines and run. So practically, whatever that you're going to run, Jenkins will connect to only one machine in that group and it will be running it. Okay. So what I was trying to tell is, now, if you see everywhere, it mentions the word called build, 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 that is build trigger, build environment, build, post build action, and also when you run the job, it is saying build history. So why is it saying the name called build, build everywhere? It is practically because first time when someone created a Jenkins, they thought Jenkins will be used only for continuous integration. And in continuous integration, what is the major task we are going to do? Basically, we are going to do the build. So that is why the naming convention started from there. So practically, now when you are running a job, Jenkins thinks that you are trying to do a build. Okay, so it is not mandatory that you will be doing a build, but internally it assumes that Jenkins was basically created for doing a build. That is why whenever you say build triggers, it means that you are trying to trigger a build. You are trying to give a step for doing a build. But ideally, it is not necessary that you have to do a build. You can do any other task. In the same way, every time when you run a job, it is going to give a number. This is called as build number, which indicates the number based on which you have executed the job, or the number of time you have executed the job. Okay, so don't get confused why it is saying. And once again, if you say build now, you are not actually doing a build of a project, but it is just a standard name which Jenkins is following up. Okay, clear? Okay, now here, if I type a command called mkdir Adam, what is it going to do? What is this command mkdir Adam? It will create a directory. Exactly. Now, where have we created the directory? Where is this directory available? We have created this directory. That is 100% correct. But the question is, where is this directory? Or I want to go to this directory. So where is the location of this directory? Exactly. Tell me the full path. Where is it available? Kavya, I'm not talking about Jenkins now. I'm just practically talking that, what is this? This is a Windows command prompt I have opened. Okay, I'm not running anything in Jenkins. I'm just showing you something by opening a Windows command prompt. This is a Windows command prompt. So in this, I have just written a command called mkdir. And in that, it has created a directory. So where is this directory available? It is available in C Vesva Maven sample directory. Why was it created here? It is because in the command prompt, currently I am in this directory. So that is why when I ran this command, it is going to create it here. So if you go this, you can see under your sample folder, you have created a folder called Adam. Correct? So clear with the basic thing. Why did it get created here? That is because I ran this mkdir from this directory. Correct? Getting what I'm trying to say? So you created a directory from this place. Okay, absolutely correct. Now, let us try to run the same command from Jenkins and see what happens. So now here, I'll go to the build section, and in this, now, after running this command, I want to run one more command called as Adam. And if I save it, and if I run this, if I try to run, what will happen? So what and all happens in the sequence? First, it will try to connect to a machine which is available based on your group that you have given here. Okay, so in this group, whatever machine is available, it will connect to that machine, and in that machine, it is going to run all these tasks, whatever that you have given, that is running it one by one. So that is what it has done, correct? So in that, it has actually run this command also. So the next question is, which machine has it used? It has used server 01. So ideally, we know that server 01 is nothing but my own machine, correct? So now the question is, in my machine or in this server 01 machine, where has it created this folder called Adam? Getting my question? Are you getting my question? So if you say mkdir, it is creating a directory. Yes, I know. But why did it create in here? Because in this machine, I am running this command from this folder. So this directory is available under this folder. Same way, now, if you are running Jenkins, Jenkins is going to connect to this machine, and in that machine, it is going to run this. So where exactly it has run this? Yes. So if you look here, it has basically used some directory, and in this directory it is running, correct? Now, if you look at very closely, what is this directory? This directory. Can you now come to the machine? This is the machine what it has used, right? Which we have configured. In this, do you see a path that we have given here? Do you see it somewhere? You see it here, right? So can you recall what is this remote root directory? So if you remember, what did I say remote root directory is? If you connect to a machine, and after connecting to a machine, if you want to run some command or task, Jenkins will be going to that remote root directory in that machine, and only under that it will be running everything. Correct? So that is how, if you connect to a machine, Jenkins will go to the remote root directory in that machine, and only under that remote root directory it is going to run all the tasks. Okay, so that way the remote root directory for this machine is this folder. So internally I know that this machine is my machine. So if you say that it has run on this, it has basically run on this folder. But now if you look, it has not just run under it. Further, it has some more folder. So what exactly that is? This is the folder that I gave, but under that, it has created a folder called workspace. Now, why has it done that? The reason is, now it is not just one job. Like this, I can run many jobs on this machine, isn't it? Basically, based on the number of executors I have given, I can run different kind of jobs on this machine. So now, if let's say there is another machine or another job And on that job also, I am creating a same folder called Adam, and that job is also running on this. Then practically what will happen? If you run everything directly under this remote root directory, it cannot keep a track. So that is why what Jenkins does is, rather than running directly under the remote root directory, it will create a folder called workspace, and under this workspace, it will create one more folder, which is the name of your job which you are running. Okay, and only under that it will be executing all the steps whatever that you are going to say. So it means now under the remote root directory of that machine, it will create a folder by the name workspace, and under that it will put one more folder with the name of your job, and only inside that it will be running. Okay, so that is why now you can see this, the folder Adam has been created under this. Like this, now if you run any other job on this machine, it will create one more folder with that name of the job, and under that whatever that you want to run, it will be running. Getting the point? What do you mean by remote root directory now? Not only this, if you go to the previous job, even there it will be having the same thing. I mean the previous run of the job. So everywhere, first it will go to the remote root directory. Under that, it will create a folder called workspace, and under that it will create a folder with the name of the job, and only in that it will be running everything. So be aware of it. When you run something, Jenkins will go to the remote root directory of that machine, and under that it will create a folder called workspace and the name of the job, and only under that it is going to run everything. Getting it? Which file you are talking about? No, not file. I said we have one job, right? Suppose like this, if I want, I can create one more job. Okay, quickly see this. Now I have created one job. Okay. Now if you go to the Jenkins homepage, you can say that it has showing one job. Now let's quickly create one more job. Okay. And this job, I will call it a second job. Okay, I'm just giving the name. And now in Jenkins, once again, if you are creating a job, you can always refer to another job and replicate if you want to do. So simply, I'm going to use this and say copy the first job contents and put everything similar to it. So what I have done now is I have created one more job called second job, and that also I am telling it to run from test group. Okay, so simply for testing. And now if you run this, what will happen? This will also try to run on the server 01, but it will not run directly under the remote root directory. What it will do, it will go to the remote root directory. Inside that, it will create a workspace, and in that workspace, it will create a folder called second job, and only under that it will be working. Now, if you see, you can see that it has created a folder called second job under the workspace of the remote root directory, and there it will be running everything. So you can see that here. You can see it has created one more folder. So like this, if you run any job on a particular machine, it will basically create a folder with the name of that job, and only under that it will be running everything that you can see here. Getting it? What do you mean by running a particular job? Here, if you go to a job, this is the job. To run a job, you will click on build now and that will be running. Whenever you click, it will be running the job at that point of time on demand basis. Getting it? So if you go to the Jenkins homepage, it will show you all the jobs that you have. Yeah, so if you have two jobs, you want to run only that, then go to that job and that click on this build now and it will be running only that. If you want to run the other job, go to this job and click on build now and it will run only that. Okay, so as of now, let's see job by job and we will see complicated things little later. For now, if you want to run some job, what we have seen so far is only a on-demand basis. Okay, we still didn't go to the scheduled. I am just showing you one by one. In the next class, we will see how to schedule this job automatically to run, and then what are the different tasks that we can do, and then followed by that, what and all plugins we can put, and how do you run the continuous integration, and we will try to couple up with all the plugins that we have and different tools that we have seen so far and create a continuous integration and continuous delivery one by one. So I'm trying to go through the concepts one by one. Where now is it clear on what a job is, and when you run, how you will specify where to run and when to run and what it has to do, and in that where exactly it will go and run. Basically it will go to the remote root directory. Under that it will be going and creating a specific folder with the name of the job, and under that it will be executing everything. And if you do not give a machine that is the group, then it will take the remote that is your master machine itself as the default machine. And in this, it will be taking up a machine which is available automatically. Because out of two machines, we had only one machine connected to the Jenkins, so it is automatically going to use it. Suppose there is one thing that you need to know. If none of the node is available, right now I just cancelled it. Okay, so if you come to this group, now none of the machines will be connected. You can see none of them is connected. So when you now try to trigger a job, the job will not trigger. It will be showing it as waiting. Okay, so it says that all the nodes on this group are offline or Jenkins is not connected. So it doesn't know which one to connect. So next time, whatever machine gets connected, it will use that and run. But until then, Jenkins will be waiting for any one of the machine to be available in it. Okay, now just to do a change, I will use this name. Earlier I had used 01 machine, correct? Now I will use the 02 name. So from this, if I say 02 and run, it is going to connect as a machine called server 02. Okay, so now in this, if you come back to the node, server 02 is run, and immediately if you go here, it would have run. And if you see the output in this, it would have used server 02. So that is how, when no nodes are available on a group, Jenkins will wait until a node is going to be available. And whenever the first node that gets available, Jenkins will use and run it. Getting it? Okay. So I'll stop it